evening and welcome. You're watching ET Now. The show is Startup Central, the first and the only daily show in India dedicated to startups, entrepreneurship. I'm Ruchi Bhatia. We have a power-packed show lined up for you over the next 20 minutes, straight up to the top story that we're going to be tracking here this evening on the show today, and that of course is the issue of angel tax. It's been impacting several thousands of entrepreneurs on a daily basis. The angel tax issue has impacted the startup world in a big way, and these worries continuing from 2018 to even now in 2019. No clarifications yet coming in from the government, and we're picking up that the industry associations like TiE, Nasscom, Venture Capital Association have all written to Finance Minister Arun Jaitley as well as the Commerce Ministry and the Commerce Minister Suresh Prabhu as well. It's a hard-hitting petition on the demon of angel tax, where all these associations have called for immediate action, as they believe that this tax demon is hurting the Startup India mission. Let me take it across to my colleague Rahul Dayama, who's joining in live from Bengaluru with more details. Rahul, Startup India was one of the big themes that Prime Minister Narendra Modi talked about 4 years back when he had taken over, and now we're looking at startups dealing with this issue of angel tax. No clarity coming in from DIPP or Finance Ministry, despite the startup captains lobbying for it for a very long time.
Ruchi, that's right. We have accessed the letter that Nasscom, industry associations, TiE, global, several chapters like Bangalore, Mumbai, Chennai, the Venture Capital Association, and even Indian Angel Network have for probably the first time, because we've seen entrepreneurs write to DIPP, we've seen entrepreneurs write to Finance Ministry, but for the first time all associations, startups, ecosystem enablers have come together. Considering the seriousness of the matter, they've petitioned the finance minister. But it's quite a hard-hitting request, so to say, because they have gone on to talk about how the angel tax issue has, impacted the Startup India mission itself, with it running into severe implementation problem. They have also gone on record to say that this has hurt investor sentiment, so much so that we have seen some very good startups decide to move out of India. So while they may have an India presence, they decide to get domiciled outside. Singapore is a tax-friendly hub. They have pointed to all those implications that the tax demon is costing. Because remember, as you mentioned, Ruchi, it's been more than a year now that entrepreneurs are awaiting clarity. We've recently seen Finance Ministry ask CBDT not to go after startups till the matter is considered. Even at Rajya Sabha yesterday, he did mention the issue that startup founders have written to us, and we are looking into the matter. But now, for the first time, we have Nasscom, TiE, and other associations coming together. They have, in plain words, asked for more clarity. They say for the first time, nowhere in the world do you have provisions of this kind in income tax, wherein investment is considered an income. While they say, yes, there might be cases where, some investors are peddling their black money into the ecosystem, but there's a better way to address that issue. We ask you to go after them, but not impact the entire startup ecosystem. They've asked for abolishment of the angel tax. The way out really, because the petition also talks about what really can the government do to address the problem, and considering there's so many departments, really they will have to sit together and work out. One, emphasize on legitimate use of funds, because they want not all VCs to be impacted. In fact, some venture capital funds have also received these notices. Valuation certificate that are given by experts must really be accepted. There has to be a speedy disposable of pending appeals, because remember, some of them go on to 2-3 years. Bank accounts are freezed, impacting startups, hitting their business hard really. They want that. And the big takeaway really being that the DIPP method of having an interministerial board sit down and clear requests, that hasn't worked, with only 2 startups writing in. So the big takeaway, Ruchi, is that in startup ecosystem enablers now want the finance ministry to address the problem, because nothing has changed on the ground over the last 1 year, in spite of repeated clarifications that the CBDT should not go after entrepreneurs. In fact, you will hear one of the signatories out on the show,
I know.
Ravi Gururaj from TiE Bangalore, who will join us to talk about what they hope the finance ministry will do.
In fact, Ravi Gururaj is on the line with us. But before I go to Mr. Gururaj, Rahul, I have a follow-up question to ask of you. This issue has been pending since last year. In just 4 or 5 months from now, we'll be heading into general elections. What is the possibility of the government, in fact, coming out with any sort of clarification, or in fact, going ahead and resolving this issue once and for all?
Ruchi, I've been talking to a lot of entrepreneurs who have been impacted. Even last time, they hope something will come by in the budget. Remember, the budget session is very close by, and everyone is hoping that Arun Jaitley will have some clarity, if not really announced before by Jan, at least in the budget session itself, he will have some clarity, because this has hit several thousand entrepreneurs. Investors have been getting notices impacting how investors view the thriving startup ecosystem. So, while elections are near and entrepreneurs do realize that, they hope that the budget session will really hold some key answers and clarification, because that would, for once and for all, close the matter if he decides to make some announcement in the union budget.
All right, the budget session is going to kickstart from the 31st of January to the 13th of February. The hope is that some sort of clarification will come in on the issue of angel tax as well. Rahul, many thanks for joining in and getting sense of the developments from there. But as promised, Ravi Gururaj, the president of TiE Bangalore, is on the phone line with us. Ravi, good evening. Thanks for joining us on ET Now Startup Central. It's been more than a year that we have been discussing this issue. Why do you think it has still not been addressed? And going forward, 2019 is going to be an election year. In just 4 months from now, we will be heading into general elections. How important is going to be this issue and the clarity thereof that many of the startups are seeking out for?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a very vexing issue for startups, because it's really debilitating if you receive IT notices and, you need to now spend time representing yourself in front of the IT commissioners to get assessment orders. And, you have the threat of accounts being frozen, all of that, right? So I think what the industry organizations that put together the consolidated letter to Shri Arun Jaitley and Shri Suresh Prabhu today was really to try and emphasize that this is a having very broad adverse impact across the entire startup ecosystem, that it's been very negative for startup founders, for young companies, and that we need to find a resolution to this quickly. It cannot be that it goes beyond this budget for sure, because the current status quo is unacceptable. It's just too onerous, and even though CBDT has said no coercive actions and all of that, but the sword hangs over all of these startups that have these IT notices, and there are lots of different procedures they have to go through. There's lots of confusion. I think, to really have a startup India flourish, which I think is really genuinely the intent of almost all the government departments we've talked to and all the ministers we've talked to, we just need to get them all to converge and understand what it is and help them design a system that allows them to make sure that, certain fraudulent actions don't happen, certain misuses of the law doesn't happen, but at the same time, you cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? So to say.
Absolutely. But Ravi, you have been talking about how this is a huge roadblock for the Startup India mission as well. Given the fact that there are so many departments involved, do you believe perhaps that is the moot issue that is bringing so much complexity to resolving the issue of?
No, I think, we have to look to all of the other ecosystems around the world where startups are flourishing, where, the entrepreneurial ecosystem is growing rapidly. I think this angel tax, which is taxing an investment on its first being made into a startup, being injected into a startup, is something that's completely unique to India at this point. Now, it may be that the circumstances that led to this are unique to India as well, but I think the safeguards being put in place are not acceptable to the way we want to nurture the startup ecosystem, right? You cannot tax a startup that receives 100 rupees as an investment, tax them 30 rupees right at the top, right up front. That just is not viable. No investor would invest under those circumstances, right? Regardless of what valuation method you put to it, what case study you may throw it at the system saying we're trying to close this loophole or that loophole, we need to find a way around that scenario where a startup, when it's raising its first initial seed fund, is taxed at an extremely high rate right up front, even before it's got off the ground. I think, I hope the ministers will help bring all the other departments together to help resolve this in a speedy way before this current budget, and that we can have some resolution to this at the earliest. That's what the four large organizations plus all the TiE chapters have got together to speak as the voice of the industry, so that there's no ambiguity that this is hurting everybody,
Absolutely. The hope is that Finance Minister Arun Jaitley would bring in some sort of a clarity on this issue in the next interim budget, which will be presented on the 1st of February. But Ravi, let me also ask you, why in your view has a DIPP clarification that was issued in April 2018 of angel tax exemptions not worked? Do we understand that only 2 startups have applied for recognition?
See, that's the interministerial board that you're talking about that you have to go through. I think a lot of startups have found that to be a very onerous process. They're not willing to apply. There's a lot of confusion whether that will actually grant them all the waivers they need, all of that, right? So there's not enough clarity there. I don't think startups have understood, and I don't think startups are really manned to manage all these different varying policies and notifications that are thrown at them, right? These are companies that are made up of 2, 3 young entrepreneurs, sometimes only a half dozen or a dozen, and that's just, they don't even have the admin staff to cope with all this. So, we need to take into account that you're really kind of suffocating very seedling type ventures, right? And they just don't have the bandwidth to manage this kind of due process that is being put in place, right? And it's administratively impossible for them to react. I think the interministerial body, that itself meets infrequently. It has a very high bar in terms of what is innovation. And startups have to provide lots of data, and, they're just not set up for that. I think, it's just too onerous in the very early stages to expect startups to kind of manage all that process.
Ravi, we get your point on that. You are talking about in your petition how many of the startups are moving out of the country, and you have said that urgent intervention is needed in terms of, the government accepting valuation certificates that are issued by experts, speedy and expeditious disposals of pending appeals as well. And you've emphasized on legitimate sources of funding as well. Have you at all heard from either of the government departments, whether it is Finance Ministry or Commerce Ministry, what kind of changes can they bring in, and if something is on card, something that they're looking at almost immediately?
Yeah, so let me make this clear. We're very committed to supporting the government in its startup programs, very committed to ensuring that we can collaborate with them in making sure we put the right regulations in place, okay? I think there may be good, reasons why they tried to put this angel tax in place, but I think the implementation is flawed from a startup perspective. So we need to make adjustments, and we're going to work constructively with them on that. So, we've been working throughout. All the organizations that co-signed this letter have been working with different government departments. What we're trying to do now is seek ministerial meetings so that we can push this agenda forward, help the government structure something that will work for everybody. The government departments, the startups, and, all the ecosystem overall, right? That's our goal, and we're going to work towards that. And we hope we can do it expeditiously in time for this new budget. And if there's some, resolutions need to be passed through the budget, we can get that in place as well.
All right, let's keep our fingers crossed, and we hope that Finance Minister Arun Jaitley is able to bring in some clarity on that issue in the next interim budget that will be presented on the 1st of February. Ravi Gururaj, many thanks for taking your time out and speaking to us on this very important matter that affects a lot of startups in India. Moving on now to all the action from the food technology space. Small Restaurant Association recently held a meeting with the representatives of Zomato and Swiggy, and this after they accused them of distorting competition with predatory discounts and large control on inventory as well. Restaurants have claimed that online players are increasingly resorting to practices that favor their own cloud kitchens and put conditions on inventory. Restaurants want online players to cut down on discounting and reduce control over inventory as well. Remember, they had also petitioned that the Competition Commission of India look into this matter. All right, moving on, Israel-based cybersecurity solutions provider Radware has acquired Indian bot mitigating and management startup Shield Square. Post the acquisition, Radware will offer Shield Square's bot mitigation and management product line under its new Radware bot management product line. Shield Square will be fully integrated into Radware. It was, remember, so far backed by investors such as RPG Ventures, Anthil Ventures and Startup X Seed Ventures Highway, among many others. So far, it has raised 3 rounds of funding between 2014 to 17. All right, let's take it across to Satish Andrad. He is, of course, joining us on the phone line. Satish, good evening. Thanks for speaking to us at ET Now. Shield Square is in the bot mitigation and management space. Why was it such a good idea for you to exit so soon?
Thank you for having me on the call. I mean, as always, as investors, we work with entrepreneurs, and eventually it's the entrepreneur's decision in terms of, whether they want to build a company, scale and take it all the way, or if they want to exit at a certain point of time. While investors, of course, play a very active role, and as an early stage VC fund, we call ourselves a co-founder VC, but still we work with entrepreneurs, and eventually it is the entrepreneur's decision. Also, in case of Indian technology startups that are competing in the global markets, especially with companies in the Valley or Israel or Europe, they need to know the customer, they need to know the competition. And very large technology companies, of course, when they want to enter new markets, they look at startups and they want to partner with them from a go-to-market point of view, as well as time to market. So entrepreneurs get these inbound acquisition offers and then they make the decisions. And as investors, we work with them and we support them when they want to exit.
Right. But let me also ask you, Satish, do you believe this is the best option for product startups? So why can't we scale them to a global company over a longer period of time? We haven't seen, an Indian product company really get to a bigger scale here.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great observation. I do believe very strongly that in the next few years, we are going to see several startups scale and kind of go all the way. I mean, in the SaaS world, we've already seen some of the companies, obviously, that have gone into 100 million plus revenue and scaling and going very strong. One of the key things for especially Indian startups going global, right? There are 2 kinds of startups. India startups that address India markets to begin with, and then they look at neighborhood markets like Middle East or Southeast Asia. And then there are other set of players, that go global from day one. So for the entrepreneur who's building a product for global customers from day one, as I said earlier, they need to know their customer really well, and they also need to know their competition really well. And when they scale, it's not just about the product. It's a lot about marketing and sales. And when they move beyond, say, 10 million kind of revenue, they need to open up offices in multiple countries around the world, and they need to hire the right kind of management teams and work with them, integrate them in the company culture, and then grow the company. So it's just not the product alone, attracting capital from the right investors, from those local ecosystems, as well as hiring the right talent and making sure that they're integrated very well becomes extremely important. So sometimes entrepreneurs kind of look at the opportunity cost, and in the technology industry, as you know, it's very, very competitive. So they make the decisions whether they want to grow and take it all the way, or they are better off by being acquired by one of the large players.
Let me ask you one last question. We're in the new year 2019. What, according to you, will be the big trends to watch out in this year?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
I'm saying we're in the new year 2019. What, according to you, will be the big trends to watch out for in this year?
Well, as a VC fund that's focused on deep tech, I mean, we have, CES going on right now, right, in Las Vegas. A couple of our companies, a company called Alpha ICs, which has built one of the fastest AI edge processor, is demonstrating its solution, benchmarking its processor performance against the best out in the world. Another company called Steradian Semiconductors, which is in the imaging radar chip space, for autonomous vehicles, is also displaying its technology. So we believe that, the enablers like artificial intelligence, machine learning, IoT, security, blockchain, all these are enabling technologies. And when you really look at verticals like financial services or healthcare, or even mobility, you see a lot of interesting opportunities for entrepreneurs. So we believe that after the IT services wave and the BPO wave and the internet, mobile and consumer internet in India, product companies are going to take birth, and we will see more and more of them. And so we're very excited, the next few years.
All right, Satish, many thanks for taking your time out and speaking to us here on Startup Central. All right, before we wrap up this show, let's also get you a big voice on the show. Infosys recently held its Science Awards to honor researchers in the fields across science, humanities and mathematics. Rahul Dayama caught up with Shibulal, the co-founder of Infosys and the trustee of the Science Foundation as well, for a chat on the role of research and solving problems in India. Hear them.
To start with, as you said, this is the 10th year of the Infosys Science Prize. It has done very well. We have given prizes to about 62 people. I think this will be the 62nd now, and I think it is very important for any society to encourage science and research. India is a country of contradictions. We have many problems in every sector, and each one of those sectors require innovation, and innovation happens from basic research. So it's very important for us to encourage basic research. Now, if you look at the country, there are many challenges in the research space. Number one, the amount of funding which we allocate is low compared with any other country in the world. So that is one big challenge. Second is that the ecosystem between the basic research, the startup ecosystem, and the enterprise is still weak. So that is something which we need to build. Then in most countries, each player participates in the research. For example, the private sector has a part to play, the social sector has a part to play, the government has a part to play. In India, I don't think we have matured enough in all the sectors to play that part. So there are 2 or 3 areas where we still have a long way to go.
So would you agree that, apart of course from private push on innovation and internal R&D spends, the government also can do a lot more in this area? Would you agree with that, the fact that there's a lot that has to happen through public-private partnerships or the government itself to fund research in a big way?
So as I said, I think each player has a part to play, right? The public sector has a part to play, the government has a part to play. Government's responsibilities maybe in funding, then building basic infrastructure, investing in labs, things like that. Foundations like us have a part to play in recognizing the work, in creating role models, in evangelizing learning science. So each of the players have a part to play.
So would you agree that, the last 2-3 years, we've, you spoke about research sort of leading to innovation and the thrust on innovation that comes by. We've seen a lot of, action in that space over the last 2-3 years, and that sort of take off in a big way and would define how, India looks at the next 10, 20, 30 years.
See, I think basic research is a very long-term process. It's not a 2 or 3 year process, right? India needs to produce enough PhDs. The number of people going into PhD itself is low. So we have to encourage more people going into PhDs, which means you have to have the sense of curiosity in the student's mind, which means the school system has to change. So this is a very long process, long-term process. Yes, of course, in the last 3-4 years, you have seen a very strong startup ecosystem being built, and that is good. But basic research is a very long-term affair, and I think that still has a long way to go.
For someone who's sort of pursuing research, is looking in, there's anyways, it's a long haul. As you said, you end up spending so much of time. What are your pieces of advice, for young students also at school or college level to inculcate the spirit of research and, to where that can sort of lead to? What do you think?
I think curiosity is something which every human being needs to have. And every student has to have curiosity, basic curiosity of how things work.
It has to be fed well also, curiosity.
Yes, it has to be. It has to be part of your basic DNA to do anything good in life, right? So I think my advice to students is to keep that light burning, keep that candle burning, that sense of curiosity, sense of looking at the world and trying to understand why it is the way it is or why it is not the way it is. And I think that is very important. And that sense of curiosity is what leads to children moving into basic science, then going into research. And I think that is how the linkage gets built.
Lastly, don't you think that with India and India-specific challenges, the role that research can play can have a direct impact on lives, and how? So there are a lot of India-specific challenges that if you solve, you solve for the world, the next 200, 300 million really around the globe.
I think it's very true. I think in every society, research can play a very big role. But for a country like India, where we have 1.2 billion people with such diverse issues. And we still have huge issues in healthcare, in education, in various other areas. I think basic science and research can really, really contribute. You have to invest, you have to be patient, and that research has to produce tangible discoveries, which will then get converted into applied innovation, and that is when the society benefits. So I think there is a tremendous value which this society can get from basic research.